want to watch it, I guess they can watch it there. I'll figure this out later. So there's some more people that are joining here, so maybe they figured out that it's not working. All right, so we're finishing up Joshua today. We're actually finishing the book today. So we're finishing up. There we are. That's Facebook. So we're finishing up the book. We're going to read the last few chapters of Joshua, which again, we've kind of read over the last month or so. Some books of the Bible are going to take longer than Joshua, but I think if we think about, the fact that we're probably going to read 4 or 5 chapters of a biblical text per week, that's about, there's 24 chapters in Joshua, so it took roughly 5 weeks to go through it. Again, that's not going to be necessarily the case when we get to every, like next week, or next week when we start the book of Judges, we might find that some of the stories in Judges, especially stories of Samson and some of these other stories that are almost like units on their own, some of those might go on for longer than, maybe slower than 5 chapters, but figure out that's about what we're probably on pace to do. And so I will put up on the screen where we left off, which was right at the end of the book right at the end of chapter 19, the beginning of 20.
Before we start, we should wish Jeff a happy birthday. Yesterday was
yesterday. That's true. Thank you. It was yesterday. Happy birthday, Jeff. You had wonderful tributes on your social media from your wife.
Yeah, it was a fun day. Thank you so much.
Did you have fun? It was good?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, very happy birthday to you, Jeff. And we're glad you're back here to enjoy in California, in your native California land. And we hope that the Dodgers deliver you a slightly late birthday present, because you're a big Dodger fan. You deserve to have a Dodger victory for your birthday. We all do. We're hoping for that. But what we finished with last week was, thank you, Mike, for reminding us of that celebration. We had a weird break here, which was an example of, again, Christian and Jewish breaking of a book. It's not that there was it's not a horrible, there's some examples I think that really don't make sense, but kind of the way we read it as Jews is that the last line of chapter 19 by the Christian break was, and the one that we follow, the standardized one, was the last sentence essentially comes out to, these are the portions assigned by lot to the tribes of Israel by the priest Eleazar, Joshua, son of Nun, and the heads of the ancestral houses before the Lord at Shiloh at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And then with the phrase, when they had finished dividing the land, or it could be, again, maybe in the King James, it says something as they had finished dividing the land. So, and what's interesting about that phrase, Vayechulu mechalek et haaretz, in Hebrew, Vayechulu means when they had ceased or when they had finished. It's the same word, Vayechulu, that we have when God finishes creating the planet, the skies, and all the earth. It says the same word, Vayechulu. So it kind of makes sense to finish it there. But the way we kind of looked at it is that the next chapter actually begins with the words, when they had finished dividing the land, the Lord said to Joshua, speak to the Israelites. It's not a huge difference, but there's definitely a different thing that happens here. So what happened last week, what we read last week and the week before, is the allotment, the dividing of the land amongst the tribes. And so each tribe gets their portion. In some cases, doesn't quite work out the way that it was maybe intended. We read first about the portions on the other side of the Jordan River of the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh. That's going to come back into play. We read about the tribes on the other side of the Jordan River, with the larger tribes in the south first, and then kind of moving our way north. And this week, we're going to be reading about kind of the division within the division, which is now we're going to read about the cities of refuge, which we read about in the book of Numbers, the cities that people who kill someone unintentionally, what we'd call manslaughter today, where those individuals who are guilty of manslaughter could flee to and live out in safety without having to worry about being killed by the family of the person that they killed. So the family would have a right in some situations, I guess you could say normally, to avenge blood for blood. However, if you go to a city of refuge and you stay in the city of refuge until the priest at the time dies, it's kind of a weird sentence, but if you got lucky and the high priest would die, you could kind of leave. But it is a weird, it's kind of like a Supreme Court lifetime appointment. A high priest goes out of office when he dies. When you could go back to your place or back to your tribe, you would still be free, you'd still be protected. You couldn't be avenged, but it's a weird kind of sanctuary law, and it allows people to not, if you don't have jails and you don't really have a way to punish people fully economically for the value of a life, which the Bible kind of says, yeah, there is a value for certain things, but you really can't put a place of value on a human life the way obviously we do today in actuarial tables. And when someone has someone who's died, that they get a civil judgment against somebody. If you don't have those kinds of laws and those ability to enforce those kinds of things, you have to come up with these kind of creative things. So we're going to be reading about the cities of refuge. The other thing we're going to be reading about is about the cities for the priests, for the Levites, and for, again, the essentially at the time when there is no Jerusalem where everyone will worship, we're going to read about how the Levites lived amongst the people. And we read about that already. We knew about that originally from Moses. Numbers, we're told that there are going to be places where priests will live. We know that the Levites don't get a tribal portion. They get to live amongst the people. So we're going to read about those cities. It's pretty much a long list of cities and villages, where the Levites were living within each tribe. And then one other important thing we're going to read about is kind of an interesting story about what happens as the tribes split off and start going into their different communities, which is definitely the theme of the book of Judges, but we get some even in the book of Joshua. So that's where we are. And for the sake of consistency or clarity, we can have Rosemary begin with, when they had finished dividing the land, the Lord said to Joshua, if you want to start there, which is where we're starting.
When they had finished dividing the land, the Lord said to Joshua, speak to the Israelites, designate the cities of refuge about which I commanded you through Moses, to which a manslayer who kills a person by mistake, unintentionally, may flee. They shall serve you as a refuge from the blood avenger. He shall flee to one of those cities, present himself at the entrance to the city gate, and plead his case before the elders of that city. And they shall admit him into the city and give him a place in which to live among them.
So again, these cities of refuge are talked about. They're outlined in the book of Numbers. They are towns that are essentially maintained by the Levites, which is why they are kind of religious, spiritual centers. They have a role to play as places of asylum, essentially. And again, the book of Deuteronomy repeats it. And now we have it here in the book of Joshua. This does seem to be important to the Bible. It seems to be maybe important to one of the authors in particular, the author we call the Deuteronomist, the one who is responsible for the book of Deuteronomy. There seems to be a consistency in this that is very important. look, it's not something that we can ignore, because it's super, it's the law is consistent throughout these different books of the Bible, and so clearly it's important. And other cultures and other groups had similar laws. So this is not a, I mean, by our sensibilities, it seems weird. I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to make an excuse for it, but I just want to make it clear. This is very consistent in the Bible, and it's consistent with what other cultures had, these kinds of rules. So that's what he does. He pleads his case, or basically tells the people of the city why he's going to be living amongst them. And here's kind of like follow-up to that.
Should the blood avenger pursue him, they shall not hand the manslayer over to him, since he killed the other person without intent and had not been his enemy in the past. He shall live in that city until he can stand trial before the assembly, and remain there until the death of the high priest who is in office at that time. Thereafter, the manslayer may go back to his home in his own town, to the town from which he fled.
Yeah, which again doesn't say he can live anywhere, but I mean, he can go back home.
So they set aside Kadesh in the hill country of Naphtali in Galilee, Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And across the Jordan, east of Jericho, they assigned Bezer in the wilderness in the tableland from the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh.
Yeah. So there's 3 on one side of the Jordan River and 3 on the other side of the Jordan River. It shows you that, it was kind of balanced. It's a recognition that every tribe, look, there's only 12 tribes, so not every tribe can have a city of refuge in them. And probably, again, do you want to have a city of refuge in your place? Probably not. It's probably not, doesn't do a lot for home values. And it also, I mean, in all seriousness, it takes away part of your territory. So it's got to be kind of spread out. And so the bigger tribes like Judah, Ephraim, Naphtali is not necessarily a bigger tribe, but it is a tribe of the northern area that is big enough that they can give up a city. This kind of makes sense. And on the other side, all 3 tribes that are on the other side of the Jordan River have a city that goes to them. So Reuben, Gad, and half that tribe of Manasseh on the other side of the Jordan, they all get one too. So it makes sense. It's balanced. It's fair. It's, both sides of the Jordan get 3. I mean, it kind of begs the question, would there have only been 3 if the other side of the Jordan hadn't been settled? Would there only been 3 cities of refuge? Probably not, because those other 3 tribes would have been on the other side of the Jordan River. And I don't know, who knows? It didn't happen, but it's like half the tribes have a city of refuge. So it is an important law. And I guess there's one more paragraph.
Those were the towns designated for all the Israelites and for aliens residing among them, to which anyone who killed a person unintentionally might flee and not die by the hand of the blood avenger before standing trial by the assembly.
Yep. So any questions? Any
So it looks like there was this procedure where the blood avenger could kill you without a trial. And then there would be a trial.
Yeah, if they got a hold of you before you got to one of these cities, yeah.
Well, following on Rosemary's, if there's no trial, how do the cities of refuge ascertain that the person killed unintentionally? I mean,
think that's what the trial's about.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is it implies that there is some type of trial. It implies that there's some type of witness testimony. that there was some type of evaluation of the situation to make sure that that it was indeed manslaughter, that it was unintentional. So, if the people had known each other before, if there hadn't been, any motive, all those kinds of things would be ascertained before they would literally say, yeah, this meets the criteria for unintentional murder or manslaughter. I mean, it's hard to say.
Why wasn't that done before they had to run?
Well, that's the interesting thing. The interesting thing about this is until they get to the city of refuge, they're not free, right? So if they get killed like on the way to the city of refuge, hey, that's too bad for you. It's really strange because it kind of implies that you've got to do your best to get out and to get to that city before any of this stuff would go down. Before if they got their hands on you before, you're kind of out of luck. So, yeah, it's a pretty serious issue. It is clear that the word bishgaga means unintentional, that this is literally, again, somebody who did not intend to kill somebody, not even in a fight. Right. So it wasn't like, well, we were just fighting and I didn't want to kill him. This is literally like, you're cutting with an axe and the axe handle flies off and hits the guy in the head and kills him. It's one of those kind of situations. The problem is, again, you've got to get out of town. You've got to get to the city of refuge and find asylum before this happens. So from that standpoint, it's kind of like an interesting, like that would make an interesting movie to be the guy getting to the asylum before he gets killed. There have been some movie versions of this theme before, by the way, I can think of. It's hard to like play this out nowadays because, how do you, who would have the, I mean, you can't kill someone now without going to court and having a death penalty. But in a time when people could avenge murders of their family members, this was kind of, now again, it's not that there was like people could just go around and kill anybody they wanted to, but it does kind of show you the movement from a tribal society to a more cosmopolitan situation where there's a court, there's witnesses, there's testimony, there's a judge. I mean, all of those things imply that there's permanent positions or a permanent location where these things can happen. If you're a tribal nomad and, there's a murder in your community, within your tribe or within your clan or whatever, I mean, in those kind of societies, the elder or the head of the patriarch, whatever, decides, how justice is going to be meted out. I mean, that's the way tribes have maintained order for thousands of years. And they have. I mean, tribal societies, Native American communities had rules. I mean, they're not the same rules necessarily that we have, but they had rules. So this is kind of marking a transition you can really see from a tribal society to a more cosmopolitan or urban type situation. Just the fact that you have
so
a
it's
city.
more likely that the person who murdered was not fleeing the law, but fleeing the family.
Yep. Oh, that's what it means by saying the blood avenger. It was, by the way, that also means that it was incumbent on the family to seek justice and to actually administer justice. And that's what we would assume would have happened in these kind of situations. In societies, in tribal societies where they have honor killings and these kind of things, it's the family. I don't need to tell you this because hopefully you've read about it and you're aware of what's going on. But in communities where there have been transitions from people living in a kind of tribal patriarchal society to living in London or Karachi or wherever people are living, where still trying to administer, these kind of honor killings, and it's the family that has to do it. I mean, remember, it's parents, brothers that are killing their own daughters. It's not some stranger that's doing it. It's the parent. It's a dad I don't know what to tell you other than, again, it's so different from like when we hear the word honor killing, some people might think, oh, it's somebody else who killed them. It's their own family that's doing this. So the law was incumbent on the family to administer. And so blood avengers would be a family member. I mean, it also, again, I'm saying this begs the question of what if the family didn't want to enforce this? I mean, assumedly, you're bringing shame on your family by not seeking out justice. But I don't know, maybe people were like, I don't want to kill somebody. It's possible. So this is definitely showing a transition into a more urban setting. So that's the cities of refuge. And now we're moving into the next piece of this, which is the laws of setting aside cities for the Levites, which are much more. There's much more there. It's a lot more than 6. It's a lot more than one city for each 2 tribes. This is quite a lot of property, or quite a lot of places that the Levites are getting sprinkled amongst the people for leadership. I do want to point out that at the time that this is happening, the tent of meeting, the place that the Jews have been meeting at for nearly 40 years, is now in a place called Shiloh, which is kind of in the center of the country, not too far away from Jerusalem, but it's in a place that is it is an early capital. Shiloh is an early capital of the Jewish people. Before Jerusalem, Shiloh, like if they ever ask a trivia question, where was the first capital of the Jewish people when they came in during the time of Joshua? It's Shiloh. So that's where they are meeting. It's very much like what America was like before Washington, D.C., whereas some of there were different states, different places vying to be the capital of the United States, including, of course, New York, which was the capital for a little while. And it made sense. It was the largest city and a commercial, existing commercial power center. And it was obviously very much in the north and was not centralized, which was one of the reasons why it wasn't the capital eventually, why the move was away from that. But these were all parts of the discussions. And for those who love Hamilton, this is why the room where it happened was not in DC, it was in New York. So those negotiations of, federalists, or true federalists like Hamilton and arguing on behalf of creating a federal government meant you're going to get the government you want, Hamilton, but it ain't going to be in your backyard. It ain't going to be in New York, which is where he lived, right? It's going to be down in the South. It's going to be on the border, whatever. But these negotiations were, we're going to give you the kind of government you want, but you're going to have to locate your capital, in Thomas Jefferson and Madison's backyard. So these discussions, we have discussions, examples of this now, so we can kind of project back 3,000 years ago and know that these things were happening there in ancient Israel. They happened in ancient Greece. We know about the arguments that went on amongst the Greek city-states to figure out where they would have their headquarters, if you will, or which city would be the most powerful one. These are discussions that happen when people are figuring out how they're going to share power. And maybe it's going to be in a neutral place, right? So, which is kind of what happened with Jerusalem too. That's oftentimes the goal. But here it's in Shiloh, which is technically in the north, but central. It's not that far north. So let's take a look at what happens when the Levites are now going to get their cities. So again, we're going to get a long list of cities in the next chapters that are essentially where the Levites will live. So we're kind of going to go a little faster, but it's just because we get a long list of places. All right.
The heads of the ancestral houses of the Levites approached the priest Eleazar, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the ancestral houses of the Israelite tribes, and spoke to them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan as follows. The Lord commanded through Moses that we be given towns to live in, along with their pastures for our livestock. So the Israelites, in accordance with the Lord's command, assigned to the Levites out of their own portions the following towns with their pastures. The first lot among the Levites fell to the Kohathite clans. To the descendants of the priest Aaron, there fell by lot 13 towns from the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Simeon, and the tribe of Benjamin. And to the remaining Kohathites, there fell by lot 10 towns from the clans of the tribe of Ephraim, the tribe of Dan, and the half tribe of Manasseh.
And so here you're going to see the divisions of the Levites. Once again, and we read about it in Numbers, the book of Numbers, that the tribes of the Levite tribe is divided into clans by Levi's sons, Kohath, Merari, and Gershon. And so these three subdivisions are going to be how the cities are divided up. So again, the Kohathites are actually Aaron's and Moses's. Interesting, by the way. It doesn't say Moses, it says Aaron. It starts with Aaron. So it kind of makes sense that it starts with the most powerful of the Levites, the priests, the Kohanim. And it says that there are, again, 13 towns just from the tribe of Judah, Simon, and Benjamin that go to them. And these are all southern areas of the land of Israel. And now they get 13 in the south, and then they got 10 in the north on the Israeli side of the Jordan River. The next one, the next subgroup.
To the Gershonites, there fell by lot 13 towns from the clans of the tribe of Issachar, the tribe of Asher, the tribe of Naphtali, and the half tribe of Manasseh in Bashan. And to the Merarites, by their clans, 12 towns from the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and the tribe of Zebulun. The Israelites assigned those towns with their pastures by lot to the Levites, as the Lord had commanded through Moses.
And so through the next subgroup, or the next clan of the Levites, the Merarites, you see that there are cities that are assigned to them on both the Israeli side and the Jordanian side of the land, of the promised land. So they get cities in both, okay, on both sides.
From the tribe of the Judites and the tribe of the Simeonites were assigned the following towns, which will be listed by name. They went to the descendants of Aaron among the Kohathite clans of the Levites, for the first lot had fallen to them. To them were assigned the hill country of Judah, Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, together with the pastures around it. Arba was the father of the Anakites. They gave the fields and the villages of the town to Caleb, son of Yefuneh, as his holding. But to the descendants of Aaron, the priest, they assigned Hebron, the city of refuge for manslayers, together with its pastures, Livnah with its pastures, Yatir with its pastures, Eshtemoa with its pastures, Holon with its pastures, Debir with its pastures, Ain with its pastures, Yutah with its pastures, and Beth Shemesh with its pastures, 9 towns from those 2 tribes. And from the tribe of Benjamin, Gibeon with its pastures, Geba with its pastures, Anatol with its pastures, and Almon with its pastures, 4 towns. All the towns of the descendants of the priest Aaron, 13 towns with their pastures. As for the other clans of the Kohathites, the remaining Levites descended from Kohath. The towns in their lot were From the tribe of Ephraim, they were given in the hill country of Ephraim, Shechem, the city of refuge for manslayers, with its pastors, Gezer with its pastors, Kibzaim with its pastors, and Beth Horon with its pastors, 4 towns. From the tribe of Dan, Eltekeh with its pastors, Givaton with its pastors, Aijalon with its pastors, and Gath Rimmon with its pastors, 4 towns. And from the half-tribe of Manasseh, Ta'anach with its pastors, and Gath Rimmon with its pastors, 2 towns. All the towns for the remaining clans of the Kohathites came to 10 with their pastors.
Right. And so this is, as we're going through these cities, this list of which cities within each tribe go to the Kohathites, go to the priests. What you're also seeing is something that the Bible recognizes, is that there were Levitical towns, which again, were going to the Levites. And then there were towns that were going to Aaron and his family, which are they're cities of the Kohanim. They're cities of the priests. Now we know, because we know where this is going, because we know how this plays out. But the cities that were the Levitical towns, eventually, as the Levites are stripped of power, those Levitical cities become irrelevant to some extent, because the Levites aren't really allowed to do sacrifices in their towns anymore. And so they really don't have, there's not an income stream that's coming to those people, where, let's say in the original period during the time of Joshua and Judges, before there's a city of Jerusalem, people would come to these Levitical towns and they would offer up sacrifices, and they would bring in income into those towns. The nearby people would come and they would go to the Levite for, again, we already read in the Bible, what are some of the things the Levites do? They're going to analyze and assess, diagnose cases of Tzaharat, of the skin disease. They're going to, they're going to offer up sacrifices to people. They're going to teach them, ritual law. They're going to teach them how to keep the Torah. And the Levites are charged with these kinds of things. But as the power gets taken away from them, which is a thing that happens in the Bible, we don't talk about it a lot because we take it for granted. But that was a cultural change that happened, where Levites were essentially doing their thing in every city, or not every city, but in every tribe, but all over the place, to a point in time where the only place you could do religion, if you will, was in Jerusalem. That's a major shift. And probably, by the way, wasn't a complete and accepted shift. There were probably a lot of people who said, you know what, I'm fine with my local Levite. I don't need to go to Jerusalem. So that strain between the priests of Jerusalem and the Levites out in the country are fairly important. So what we just read about actually was a little setup, if you will, for the power structure that we will eventually have and will last throughout the time of the reign of King David. So in that area of Judah and Benjamin, where Jerusalem is, and in the environs where Hebron is and where Bethlehem is, that power center, which we know a lot more about, these priests had a whole lot of power eventually. And probably their only real check, if you will, was the king, right? And so there's probably times when the kings and the priests got along, and there were probably times when the kings and the priests didn't get along. And because the Bible, and I'm talking about the parts of the Bible we're going to read later on, like Samuel and Kings, were primarily written by priests, we get to know when they like the kings and when they don't like the kings. And there was a power struggle between them, because there was real power in the priesthood. Much later on, during the time of the Maccabees, we're talking about now, 1,000 years later, the Maccabees declared themselves kings. They said, we don't need kings of Judah anymore. We don't need Davidic line. We'll be kings. And they called themselves kings. I mean, the Maccabees were priests, but they eventually called themselves kings. Within 2 generations, Judah's family were kings. We have their coins. So we know that this was a big issue right here. We're seeing the first, like the first buds of this. But one of these places we just read about, Anatot, does become pretty big later on, about 550, 580, because that's the town that the prophet Jeremiah is from. And Jeremiah, Jeremiah is maybe one of the most important people in the Bible.
Where is Anatot?
It's outside of Jerusalem. It's not far from Jerusalem. It is one of those priestly cities. We just read it, Anatot. And this is the town that this is the town. We just read it right. I might have gone past it. Did I go past it? I think I went past it. Anatot, here it is right here.
Yeah.
So Anatot is the place where Jeremiah, who is a prophet, but he also is a priest. He's a priest. This is where his family lived, right outside of Jerusalem. And what's interesting about it is the Bible in the book of Jeremiah in particular talks about how he purchased the land, held the land when he goes into exile, which is a symbol. It's a symbolic purchase because he's basically saying, I believe that we'll return back to this place, and I believe in our return. And Jeremiah is a very negative guy. I mean, he's literally, his name is synonymous with being negative.
With ranting, basically.
And that's all he does, is talks about how bad everybody is, his own people, the other priests, the king, everybody's bad. But yet this aspect of Jeremiah that he doesn't give up on his tribal his city portion, his inheritance, if you will. The fact that he believes that this will stay in the family, that one day he'll be able, or his descendants will be able to return and say, this is my land. It's one of the most hopeful things that he does. And when we get to the story of Anatot, hopefully we'll all be there for that. You'll remember this was one of the cities that during the time of Joshua gets allotted to the Kohanim. They get this land, and it becomes part of the story of the Jewish people, that little town of Anatot. So I also threw in, by the way, here this reminder that Caleb got this land as well. Caleb's portion, even though he wasn't a priest, it's kind of pointed out that's Caleb's spot. There's a couple people that are mentioned in the book that are really important. Caleb is one of them, right? He's the only other guy besides Joshua who did the right thing and gave the right report. Well, guess what? Joshua is going to get his land too. And it was important for people to say, this is the land, this is what they got. And I went too far, I think. And that is how they divide it up and how people should know it's going to stay that way. So we did the Kohathites, the Merarites, and now we go to the Gershonites, the other one of Levi's sons and their descendants. Here we go.
To the Gershonites of the Levitical clans, from the half tribe of Manasseh, Golan and Bashan, the city of refuge for manslayers, with its pastors, and Beth Terah with its pastors, 2 towns. From the tribe of Issachar, Kishion with its pastors, Dabroth with its pastors, Yarmut with its pastors, and En-Ganim with its pastors, 4 towns. From the tribe of Asher, Mishal with its pastors, Abdon with its pastors, Helkath with its pastors, and Rehob with its pastors, 4 towns. From the tribe of Naphtali, Kadesh in Galilee, the city of refuge for manslayers, with its pastors, Hamot Dor with its pastors, and Kartan with its pastors, 3 towns. All the towns of the Gershonites by their clans came to 13 towns with their pastors. To the remaining Levites, the clans of the Merarites, from the tribe of Zebulun, Yokneam with its pastors, Karta with its pastors, Dimnah with its pastors, and Nahalal with its pastors, 4 towns. And out of the tribe of Reuben, Bezer with the open land about it, and Yahaz with the open land about it. Kedemot with the open land about it, and Methpaath with the open land about it, 4 cities. From the tribe of Gad, Ramoth in Gilead, the city of refuge for manslayers with its pastures, Mahanaim with its pastures, Heshbon with its pastures, and Yazir with its pastures, 4 towns in all. All the towns which went by lot to the Merarites by their clans, the rest of the Levitical clans, came to 12 towns. All the towns of the Levites with the holdings of the Israelites came to 48 towns with their pastures. Thus, those towns were assigned every town with its surrounding pasture, and so it was with all those towns. The Lord gave to Israel the whole country which he had sworn to their fathers that he would assign to them. They took possession of it and settled in it. The Lord gave them rest on all sides, just as he had promised to their fathers on oath. Not one man of all their enemies withstood them. The Lord delivered all their enemies into their hands. Not one of the good things which the Lord had promised to the house of Israel was lacking. Everything was fulfilled.
Wow. That seems to be an interesting place. And again, you can understand why the chapter ends there. It is going to be definitely qualified in the next 2 chapters, but it does seem like, hey, we got to a point where things are, we've come to a, we've conquered the land, we've settled the land, we've lotted it out, we've put it, we've spread it around, and I will say that this is kind of the end of one of the sections of the book of Joshua, which kind of is we've come to this point where we can take a rest. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people say that this next chapter is really also part of that. And I guess it doesn't fit into the conclusion. So maybe chapter 22 is kind of still part of this, part of what people call like the division. They call it the division of the land of, among the tribes. But it's kind of a transition, I think, because this line right here, not one of the good things which the Lord had promised to Israel had not been done. Hakolba, everything happened. It's been done. That to me is kind of the ending of an idea. But again, a lot of people include this, and I get why, because it doesn't really fit the way the last 2 chapters are, which is goodbye and kind of the end of Deuteronomy. When we come to the end of Deuteronomy, at the end of Devarim, what happens? I do want to say one more thing about Anatot, which is not as crucial necessarily, or not maybe as well defined, but there does seem to be a Christian tradition that Anatot is the place where Judas Iscariot hanged himself after he was done betraying Jesus, threw back the money at the priests and said, it does seem to be part of that narrative. Doesn't say Anatot, but it seems like the line that it says essentially was, this is just as Jeremiah had said, which doesn't seem to be obviously the point of Jeremiah. Jeremiah's, I'm going to buy the land in Anatot is I'm going to believe that the Israelites are going to come back after the Babylonian exile. But it's almost like a Christian midrash that the priests or what the priests stood for, let me put it that way and maybe be more politically correct about it, what the priest stood for was over. And so that whole Jeremiah purchasing the land and then Judas being essentially bought off by the priests, it's essentially, that's all done. And I think that there's something to be said for that. I don't know whether the importance of anatot being spelled out even has to be spelled out, because it's essentially saying we're done with that. We're done with that type of behavior. Which, by the way, might not have been just a Christian midrash. It could have been a Jewish midrash, which was, we're done with the priests and we're done with that corruption and we're done with that type of, we can't do this anymore. It's an interesting thing to think about. Like, where, maybe I'm projecting where I would have been on that discussion, and I probably would have been on the side of the writer of the book of Matthew, who said, I'm done with these people. I'm done with these priests. And the whole system is corrupt. So if Jesus represents a new way of doing business, if you will, then what just happened was, it doesn't matter anymore. Your ways just went out the window. So there is something to be said for that.
Is it a modern town, or is it a town? Have we dug there? Or?
No. Well, yeah. There's an excavation. Actually, let me tell you, Anata is it's an area it has been excavated. Let me just tell you. I don't know if. Hold on one second. It has a population of 9,600. According to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. It's 4 kilometers northeast of the old city. So one could say it's not even a suburb. It's literally, most of it lies within the Jerusalem municipality. There is probably, just by the way, no, there 100% is. There is a checkpoint that goes there between the West Bank and there's a checkpoint that goes right through Anata right now. So it has not been very well excavated. It is definitely majority Palestinian today. Let me just check. It is literally Anatot today. Since you asked this question, it's a fair question. It's not a, I'm not going to not show you what I'm about to show you. But I'm going to show you what I'm going to show you right now is a mess. And I will show it to you because we are discussing it and you asked where Anatot is today. Maybe there's a modern lesson from this too. What people will be willing to put up with. I'm going to show you what Anatot looks like right now. Hold it. I think yeah, here it goes. You ready? This is what it looks like today. So here's Anata right here. This is the area of Anatot, the area that we're talking about here. That was the priestly city. That was Jeremiah's hometown. This right here, Mount Scopus. I mean, folks, this is Jerusalem. I mean, this is Jerusalem right here. I mean, this is, Mount Scopus is the East Jerusalem, but it's the mountain that overlooks Jerusalem that it's where Hebrew University is. All these things that are blue, those are Jewish areas. The areas that are brown are Palestinian areas. Okay. This is going to be really confusing for you, but when the war ended in 1967, this area, the area we call the green line, which is there for you in green, this was the border of Israel in 1967. At the end of, up until 1967, in 1948. From 1948 to 1967, this green line was the border. So this was the new city of Jerusalem on this side, that side right here. And then this was the old city of Jerusalem, which is right here. And it is the east, what we call East Jerusalem today. Okay. This green line right here, folks, you're not mistaken. In 1948, when the war ended, Mount Scopus was under Israeli control. This area right here, folks, was completely surrounded by Jordanians from 1948 to 1967. And Hebrew University maintained a campus, an outpost on Mount Scopus, completely surrounded by Palestinians. There were convoys that were allowed at certain times of the week that would connect them, and of course helicopters could fly back and forth between them. But that was what it looked like from 1967 until the modern era, until this moment. These areas are all areas where Palestinians will say these areas, these blue areas, are illegal outposts. So that would be areas that people would say Jews are not supposed to be living, or Israelis aren't supposed, whatever you want to say.
I
This
had no idea. This is really interesting.
Well, I just want to show you what a cluster it is.
Yeah.
This line right here, this brown line, is the area that Israel has annexed, that has said this area right here is Israel's. Well, they've annexed Jerusalem, and this is considered the municipal boundary of Jerusalem. So part of Anatah this is why it's so bizarre. Part of Anatah is literally in Jerusalem, is in the Jerusalem municipality. So this whole area, Shufat, this thing that says refugee camp, it's actually a city, but it's designated as a refugee camp. This area right here is technically in Israel, or Israel considers it part of Israel. But yet again, this section right here is all Palestinian. This right here is a checkpoint. So this is one of the areas where Palestinians can go back and forth into Israel, right here from Shufat, right here from this area. So here's Shufat, and this is called Shufat Refugee Camp, but it's all Shufat. It's all part of the same area, other than this part here that's called Shufat is 100%, well, actually all of it is 100% within the boundary of the municipality of Jerusalem. And by the way, the people who live in Jerusalem are actually allowed to vote in Israel, which is a weird thing. So people who live here can't vote in Israel. People who live here can vote in Israel. So it's very, very much Anatot is. I didn't realize that both the municipality line and this, by the way, folks, is part of what we call the security wall. So you can see the security wall literally goes right around Anatot today. So, yep, that where it says completed barrier for that black wall, that's the black wall. That's the wall, the separation wall between the Israelis and Palestinians.
I had no idea the wall is so windy and goes through.
It is not. It is literally built around territories to separate them, and as you can see, the reason the wall goes around Shufat is because it's separating Pisgat Zev, which is a Jewish city, a Jewish town, or Jewish part of Jerusalem, from the Shufat camp, which is there. I mean, Pisgat Zev is I mean, I don't know what to say other than like people who live in Pisgat Zev, that they live in Jerusalem. I mean, they take a bus and they go to Jerusalem, and they don't see themselves as not being part of Jerusalem. I mean, you don't know when you're in Pisgat Zev that you're not in Jerusalem, is what I'm saying.
What is E1?
E1 is a Palestinian, is a designation for Palestinian territories, which would probably be Palestinian territories. So like it would be a Palestinian, that would be a Palestinian nation one day, if you can call it that. So yeah, this is a perfect example of the insanity that exists as of right now. So this area of E1, when Israelis build in that area right there, that's where people flip out in the international community, whatever you want to say. That's where E1, that's where things get real sticky, to put it mildly. So as you can see, this pink line is an approved barrier, which I don't know when this map was done. I'm not 100% sure. That's an approved area that's also going to be, part of a boundary. But again, I mean, when you talk about how are you going to separate the people? I mean, you tell me how this is going to be a country. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know what the answer is, folks. I have no answer. I'm just showing you what actually exists at this very moment, between borders that existed in 1948, if you will, 49, borders that exist for Israel since they've annexed Jerusalem, and areas that people have put up borders in the last 20 years because they're either believe that there's going to be a Palestinian state one day, or they believe there'll never be a Palestinian state one day. So that's all I can share with you, is the facts and the map as we have it right now. So that's on a tote, which again has been prophetic in so many ways. So let's take a look at this last section, which is, or not the last section, this next section of chapter 22. As I said, it's kind of an in-between conclusion allotment section. You can decide where it goes, but let's take a look at it. Here we go.
Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, "You have observed all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and have obeyed me in everything that I commanded you. You have not forsaken your kinsmen through the long years down to this day, but have faithfully observed the instruction of the Lord your God. Now the Lord your God has given your kinsmen rest as he promised them. Therefore, turn and go to your homes, to the land of your holdings beyond the Jordan that Moses, the servant of the Lord, assigned to you."
So again, now he's telling these guys, you did what you promised to do. You promised you were going to fight with us, help us take control of the land. And Moses told you to go back home when we've done it. We've done it. You can go back. And so that's why it's like a decommissioning. It's the war's over. It's time for you to go back home. So let's see what happens.
But be very careful to fulfill the instruction and the teaching that Moses, the servant of the Lord, enjoined upon you, to love the Lord your God and to walk in all his ways and to keep his commandments and hold fast to him and to serve him with all your heart and soul. Then Joshua blessed them and dismissed them, and they went to their homes.
So you get a real sense in this that we're completing another piece of Moses's direction, right? So Moses told you that you could do this, go back home after you did it. We're going to do it. But remember what also Moses said, you got to keep the Torah. You got to keep the laws. And then Joshua does what Moses did. He blesses the people. And so he blesses those tribes and sends them back to their homes. And so this is kind of a conclusion of another part of Joshua's work, right? Joshua probably felt a great sense of accomplishment and fulfillment that he was able to complete one of the things that Moses charged them to do.
To the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh, Moses had assigned territory in Bashan, and to the other, Joshua assigned territory on the west side of the Jordan with their kinsmen. Furthermore, when Joshua sent them off to their homes, he blessed them and said to them, "Return to your homes with great wealth, with very much livestock, with silver and gold, with copper and iron, and with a great quantity of clothing. Share the spoil of your enemies with your kinsmen." So the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh left the Israelites at Shiloh in the land of Canaan and made their way back to the land of Gilead, the land of their own holding, which they had acquired by the command of the Lord through Moses.
Yep. And what you can see here is that there seems to be, maybe a little bit of two different authors essentially winding together, the editor winding together two different versions of this story of the decommissioning. This one definitely seems to be one that focuses more on the fact that they also had spoil. They also had their, because again, at the end here, it says that they went to their homes. And then the next line says, he sent them to their homes and blessed them and returned to your home. It's almost like there's a second version of this, but it's essentially, again, the same. It's the same thing. I mean, there's not a huge difference between it, though. This other version or this other edition says that they went home, not just with the stuff that they had, but maybe one of the benefits of doing this is that they wound up with money and with spoils of war that they got from fighting with the rest of the other tribes that they wouldn't have otherwise had if they just stayed on their other side. But this is going to be critical. These guys, believe me, we're not done with these people.
So the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh left the Israelites at Shiloh in the land of Canaan and made their way back to the land of Gilead, the land of their own holding, which they had acquired by the command of the Lord through Moses. When they came to the region of the Jordan in the land of Canaan, the Reubenites and the Gadites and the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by the Jordan, a great conspicuous altar. A report reached the Israelites. The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh have built an altar opposite the land of Canaan in the region of the Jordan, across from the Israelites.
Okay, so if this is the first time you've ever read the book of Joshua, what do you think? What do you think just happened? Somebody give me what you think just happened.
They've set up a rival power center.
Right. And it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that that they do it literally immediately. And your best guess is that this is not going to wind up good, right? Like if you read this, anybody else, does anybody, like, they were just warned, don't do anything that's not in the Torah. So anybody have any thoughts about like not knowing what's about to happen? What do you think?
So
Well,
they,
oh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if they did something that was not in the Torah, that means that's a big no-no. That's the next way of saying it.
Yeah. So it appears that when this report reaches, that there's going to be consequences, that this is going to, like, people are going to die. Like, this is serious. So it's set up, and I will tell you, without ruining the story, that in the book of Judges, in the next book of the Bible, tribes go to war against other tribes. I mean, that's on the table. We read in the Torah of the Levites killing some of the other tribes people for not worshiping idols. So we know that, whoa, if what just went down is something that went against the Torah, like, people are going to die. This isn't just you're gonna, tear down your altar and, give you a warning. That like this people, a lot of people could die, not like one person, like a lot of people could die. Thousands of people could die. So here's what happens.
When the Israelites heard this, the whole community of the Israelites assembled at Shiloh to make war on them. But first, the Israelites sent the priest Phinehas, son of Eleazar, to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, accompanied by 10 chieftains, one chieftain from each ancestral house of each of the tribes of Israel. They were, every one of them, heads of ancestral houses of the contingents of Israel.
Yeah, and basically they're the other 10 other tribes, including, I guess, by that logic, also the other half of Manasseh that's on the other side, because it's only the Reubenites and Gadites in their entirety that are on that side of it. Part of the Manassites are on the other side. So maybe Manasseh, a chieftain from the Manassites, go over with Pinchas. So Pinchas is the guy in charge at this point. He is the priest in charge. He is, we've already read about him in the Torah, right? In the book of Numbers, we read about him. This guy has a zealous streak, if you will. This is the guy who ran up and speared together the Israelite and the Midianite woman that were engaged in sexual worship orgy in the Baal Peor situation. This is a dude who is already made a reputation for himself years ago for being pretty zealous and violent and not opposed to shedding some blood. And he is the like next to Joshua, he's the other guy. He's the other leader. So you've got a guy here who is he's a younger generation than Joshua, but he's been in power for a while. He's been a recognized leader, religious leader. Joshua is the political leader. He's the religious leader of the people. He is the inheritor, if you will. Pinchas, in some ways, is the inheritor from Moses, at least of that religious authority. So this is an important guy, an important meeting. So these guys go first. Okay.
When they came to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, they spoke to them as follows. Thus said the whole community of the Lord, what is this treachery that you have committed this day against the God of Israel, turning away from the Lord, building yourselves an altar and rebelling this day against the Lord?
So that's what they have to say to them. They basically hit them right away. What is this treachery you've done? That is the claim. Oh, it's not done yet. Sorry.
Is the sin of Peor, which brought a plague upon the community of the Lord, such a small thing to us? We have not cleansed ourselves from it to this very day, and now you would turn away from the Lord. If you rebel against the Lord today, tomorrow he will be angry with the whole community of Israel.
Right. So they're saying, look, we're still thinking about Baal Peor. We're still thinking about that incident, which of course, he helped. He intervened in that. Pinchas was the guy in that scene, which, by the way, also calls into question, where was Moses and Aaron during Baal Peor? Why didn't they get that together? Again, there's an interesting kind of judgment, which I don't want to get into now. We're not talking about the Baal Peor scene in Numbers, but there is that little bit of, the way Pinchas says it. Look, we're still recovering from that psychologically. We still haven't figured out, how to get beyond that. We're still messed up. And if you screw up, we're all going to have to pay the price. So don't think that this is just your thing. You're affecting everybody, the whole community, Kol Adat Yisrael. Everyone is going to be affected by this.
If it is because the land of your holding is unclean, cross over into the land of the Lord's own holding, where the tabernacles of the Lord abides, and acquire holdings among us. But do not rebel against the Lord, and do not rebel against us by building for yourselves an altar other than the altar of the Lord our God. When Achan, son of Zerah, violated the proscription, anger struck the whole community of Israel. He was not the only one who perished for that sin.
Yep. And so what the delegation says to the tribes on the other side of the Jordan, on the Jordanian side, is they said, look, if you're worried that your area isn't as good as the other side, the promised land, if you will, come over. We'll figure out a place for you to live. You don't have to worry. If that's what you're worried about, we have a solution. So Pinchas is already saying, look, if you're doing this, even if you're doing it for the right reasons, you're doing the wrong thing. And we have a solution. There is a way to fix this without you doing the wrong thing. And he says, and it is again going to be other people that are going to pay the price. And he reminds them of the situation we read about of Achan, we read about earlier in the book of Joshua. So this is he refers back to Baal Peor, which is the sin of idolatry and, not worshiping God. And then they turn to the other story of Achan, which is that he didn't pay attention and he held some of the booty that he wasn't supposed to hold. Remember that story after Jericho and Ain, when the Jews were told to destroy everything, the Israelites were told, and Achan doesn't, and everyone pays the price. So he's reminding these tribes of a couple scenes that have happened in our history where we screwed up. We didn't worship God right, or we didn't pay attention to God. We didn't listen to the rules. And again, the consequences are, it's not just you that are going to pay the price. So you can understand now why we're coming here as a delegation, right? We can, kind of telling you, look, we're not going to suffer for you. We're going to essentially, this is a little bit of a threat here, that we're not going to let you get away with this because we're going to pay the price. And so we have to intervene. Now here's their answer. Let's read their answer.
The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh replied to the heads of the contingents of Israel. They said, God, the Lord God, God, the Lord God, he knows, and Israel too shall know. If we acted in rebellion or in treachery against the Lord, do not vindicate us this day.
Right. And so they repeat it twice, or it's a scribal error. El Elohim Adonai, El Elohim Adonai, God, the Lord God. We didn't do anything wrong. We're not acting against God. We didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything wrong.
If we built an altar to turn away from the Lord, or if it was to offer burnt offerings or meal offerings upon it, or to present sacrifices of well-being upon it, may the Lord himself demand a reckoning. We did this thing only out of our concern that in time to come, your children might say to our children, what have you to do with the Lord, the God of Israel?
Wow. So you see what they said? They said, we did it so that your kids, your descendants wouldn't say to our descendants, you're not Jewish, you're not Israelite. We did it so that we would have proof that we were Israelite. It's a really powerful answer. So we didn't do it because we want to have a rival temple or religious authority over here. What we did is we want to show that we are the same people. And we're doing it for the future. We're doing it because we don't want to have it happen later on that anyone would say that we're not all one people. It's really powerful.
The Lord has made the Jordan a boundary between you and us, O Reubenites and Gadites. You have no share in the Lord. Thus, your children might prevent our children from worshiping the Lord. So we decided to provide a witness for ourselves by building an altar, not for burnt offerings or other sacrifices, but as a witness between you and us and between the generations to come, that we may perform the service of the Lord before him with our burnt offerings, our sacrifices, and our offerings of well-being, and that your children should not say to our children in time to come, you have no share in the Lord.
Wow. So again, it's presupposing what could very rightly happen, which is that people would say, that's a different country. That's not our country. That we have the Jordan River separates us. It's a natural boundary. And so they realize that there is a problem with being on the other side of the Jordan River, that it presents an opportunity for the tribes and for the Confederation to be disconnected from each other, to have a different history, if you will. And they're trying to say, look, we have the same history. We are going to be one nation. And we don't want there to be any question for our people or for your people that we're part of one nation.
We reasoned, should they speak thus to us and our children in time to come, we would reply, see, the replica of the Lord's altar, which our fathers made, not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a witness between you and us. Far be it from us to rebel against the Lord or to turn away this day from the Lord and build an altar for burnt offerings, meal offerings, and sacrifices, other than the altar of the Lord our God, which stands before his tabernacle.
Now,
So they're saying this altar is just going to be symbolic.
exactly. So, there's something interesting about this altar. And again, we don't know where this altar is. We don't want anybody to say, well, have we found this altar? No, we haven't found this altar. This implies that there's going to be problems with the tribes being able to stay together. They know it, and they know it right away. They recognize right away that it's not going to be easy to keep these tribes on the other side of the Jordan part of our country, both because they're going to develop independently and because we're going to develop on our side without them and without them being in our consciousness. So there's this recognition that this boundary of the Jordan River is going to present a big challenge for our nation to be held together. And so they're attempting to create some kind of, well, God didn't tell them to do this. I mean, so part of the answer would be, well, it seemed to be a great idea, but this wasn't really what the way God didn't tell them to do it. But I mean, they took the initiative, they did it themselves, there's a lot of ways to look at this, but I think one of the most important is there's this recognition that this confederation in some ways is being held together by dental floss. It's not an easy thing to figure out how are tribes who have, each one of them have their own agendas, and then you have geographical issues which are going to separate and cause people to kind of have very different agendas and concerns. This is really tough. And so we see it even in the book of Joshua. But let's not jump the gun. Let's see what what Pinchas and the delegation's response is.
When the priest Pinchas and the chieftains of the community, the heads of the contingents of Israel who were with him, heard the explanation given by the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the Manassites, they approved. The priest Pinchas, son of Eleazar, said to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the Manassites, now we know that the Lord is in our midst. Since you have not committed such treachery against the Lord, you have indeed saved the Israelites from punishment by the Lord.
Wow. So the judgment is, yeah, this is a good thing, you guys. This is good that you did this. You've proven that you really do want to be. This is good. Like they like the answer. They like the initiative.
Then the priest Pinchas, son of Eleazar, and the chieftains returned from the Reubenites and the Gadites in the land of Gilead to the Israelites in the land of Canaan and gave them their report. The Israelites were pleased, and the Israelites praised God, and they spoke no more of going to war against them to ravage the land in which the Reubenites and Gadites dwelt.
Whoa. Now, in case you didn't know that that's what the plan was, it just said that's what the plan was. The plan was we were going to murder everybody there. That's what the word shachet means. It's from the word shochet. It's we were going to ravage is a euphemism for what they were going to do. They were going to exterminate, or I mean, it says the land, but they are going to wipe those people out. That was what was on the table. That's what we just avoided. And that's what it said. I mean, it says war too, but it also says, shochet. They translate as ravage. I guess that's a fine translation, other than, again, I don't even know if it's as bloodthirsty as what the Hebrew has a connotation of. Wow. I mean, that's what we almost lost 2 tribes right away. Before the end of the book of Joshua, we almost lost 2 tribes. But we didn't. But whoa, that was close. That was a close call. That was a close call. One more line. Rosemary? Hello. Here. Yeah.
The Reubenites and the Gadites witnessed between us and them that the
Oh, we lost you for a second. Yeah. If you notice, that's in parentheses or brackets. Not parentheses, it's a bracket. It seems like it's missing. The name of the place seems to be missing. Because it says they named the place Witness. Was it God Witness? Was the Lord Witness? I mean, what was Elohim? Ed? The word ed means witness. But like it seems to be missing. So is it a scribal error? Is it an intentional omission? But it's missing. Yeah, the word ed isn't actually used the first time, which is why it's in brackets as a missing word. So it just says literally, like, let me read you what it says in Hebrew. Vayikru b'nei Ruvenu v'nei Gad lamizbeach. And b'nei Ruvain, the Reubenites and the Gadites, called the altar ki ed hu, because it is a witness between them and the Lord, that God is, that between them and the Lord, that it is God. So the name isn't there. We assume the name Ed Witness was in the name because it's not there. Was it Ed by itself? Was it Adonai Ed? Was it Ed Elohim? What did it say? We don't know. We don't have the name of the altar, which is weird. I mean, could be, again, just a scribal error, but we don't know what the name of this place was. We don't know what the name of the place, of this altar place was. All right. So that is a little story. about what happens after, or the last piece of the decommissioning. These last two chapters we're going to read now are Joshua saying goodbye to the people, and is very reminiscent of Moses saying goodbye to the people. You can put the two next to each other and see so many similarities between them, and we'll mention a few of them after we read it. But here we go.
Much later, after the Lord had given Israel rest from all the enemies around them, and when Joshua was old and well advanced in years, Joshua summoned all Israel, their elders and commanders, their magistrates and officials, and said to them, I have grown old and am advanced in years. You have seen all that the Lord your God has done to all those nations on your account, for it was the Lord your God who fought for you. See, I have allotted to you by your tribes the territory of these nations that still remain, and that of all the nations that I have destroyed, from the Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. The Lord your God himself will thrust them out on your account and drive them out to make way for you, and you shall possess their land as the Lord your God promised you.
Yeah. So at the same time that they're saying that, it's the same time as it says that God has given them rest from all their enemies, that they're still there. There's still nations that are that have not been wiped out, but God's going to get rid of them. And there's a recognition that we've reached a certain stage, but there is still work to be done. Here's what it says.
But be most resolute to observe faithfully all that is written in the book of the teachings of Moses, without ever deviating from it to the right or to the left, and without intermingling of these nations that are left among you. Do not utter the names of their gods or swear by them. Do not serve them or bow down to them, but hold fast to the Lord your God, as you have done to this day. The Lord has driven out great, powerful nations on your account, and not a man has withstood you to this day. A single man of you would put 1,000 to flight, for the Lord your God himself has been fighting for you as he promised you. For your own sakes, therefore, be most mindful to love the Lord your God. For should you turn away and attach yourselves to the remnant of those nations, to those that are left among you, and intermarry with them, you joining them and they joining you, know for certain that the Lord your God will not continue to drive these nations out before you. They shall become a snare and a trap for you, a scourge to your sides and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land that the Lord your God has given you.
Yeah. And so what seems to be happening here is this recognition that you didn't finish the job. There's still going to be a problem as long as they're there. And if you don't wipe them out, you're going to wind up intermarrying with them, and you're going to start doing the things that they're doing, which is the reason that they got thrown out in the first place. And there was always that understanding that, yeah, I promised this land to your ancestors, but they didn't get it until the people who lived there were no longer, again, once they were deemed to be unworthy of living in the land, that's when they got thrown out. So you're going to wind up going down that same road if you don't stay away from them. If you stay away from them, God will help you get away from them. If you don't, you're going to wind up going their way, and it's all going to be bad for you. Now, the easy answer to this, of why this is still an issue, is because whenever Joshua was completed, or whenever the book was completed, that this was still an issue. Which is why some people think that the book of Joshua wasn't even completed until the Jews came back from the land, back to the land after the temple was destroyed. So that this wasn't even finished until the Babylonian exile was over. which is that, again, this is an explanation for why the Israelites wound up exiled, because they intermarried with the people. They did not follow the Torah anymore, and they were worshiping these other gods. And so, as much as some of the stuff gets introduced by people like Solomon's wives, where he brings in these women that are bringing in this idolatry, repeatedly in the books of Judges and then Samuel and in the books of Kings, the next historical books of the Bible, we constantly have this issue where the Israelites are slipping into Canaanite modes of worship. A lot of the times it's being introduced by the marriages that these kings have. Both Solomon, who the Bible flat out says his wives brought in their other religions, and other queens and other people who bring in these modes of worship, including people like the very famous Jezebel, who was married to King Ahab. Jezebel is a Phoenician. She's a Canaanite Phoenician queen, princess, who he marries, who introduces and who essentially makes the official religion of the North this worship of Baal. So the problem is spelled out right away. And again, some people say it's conveniently spelled out because it was written by people who knew what the end of the story was, which was, yes, these gods continue to be a snare and a trap for you, a scourge on all your sides and thorns in your eyes. And you will indeed perish from this good land that the Lord has given you. So all of this stuff happens and plays out because exactly for the reasons that, Joshua says here, because they didn't uproot these Canaanite religions. Look, our understanding of the archaeology and the history that the Bible doesn't tell us is that Canaanite religion was in some ways very similar to our religion. We definitely didn't have human sacrifice. We definitely didn't engage in sexual practices for God, that the Canaanites' fertility practices that they engaged in, which, by the way, might have been very enticing for the Israelites, not only because they were farmers and liked fertility rituals, but because you're telling me that the way I worship today is I go visit a cultic prostitute. There's people who say that, I'll take that to making a sacrifice in the temple. So it's quite possible that, again, this isn't so simple. But what we also know, because we've uncovered these texts from places in Phoenicia and in modern day Lebanon, we found this great library in Ugarit in Lebanon, which had lots of texts. We found that a lot of the texts that the Canaanites had were very similar to our prayers. Like their songs, their prayers, their psalms look remarkably like our psalms. And so the prayer modes and some of the things, maybe even the music, was the same music. I mean, that's hard for us to kind of wrap our heads around, that in some cases, the differences between these prayers are the use of the word Baal versus the word Adonai. And so it's hard for us to kind of wrap our heads around it, but the differences between the religions might not have always been as great as we think they are. In some cases they were, but not maybe in every case. And again, I know that we have an inclination to make comparisons to our modern world, which we can, but I would say that clearly the Bible at least lays out, and the Canaanite archaeology lays out, that the Canaanites did indeed engage in child sacrifice. I mean, the Bible says it, and so does the archaeology. So it's not like that's a charge that we made up against them so that we would make them look bad. They believed in it. That was their practice. And we thought it was abhorrent and terrible. And thankfully we still do. But some of the worship practices were not that different than ours. Some of the offerings, some of the sacrifices were the same spices, and the same prayers were uttered, almost virtually the same prayers as we were offering. So it's not so simple to simply say, well, they're a snare. Well, the Psalms are legitimate biblical texts that the most Orthodox people of our world will chant every day. Well, when we found these Ugaritic texts and realized, oh my goodness, these look remarkably like the Canaanite Psalms, it kind of blew our minds a little bit and said, maybe this wasn't so easy to just say, oh, they're a snare and a trap. Well, yeah, they are, because they're very similar and they're in some ways not inappropriate, if you will. I mean, not all everything, as I said, some of it very inappropriate, but other parts of it we clearly thought was cool enough that we shared, the same poems. So keep that in mind, and just remember that regardless of when this was written, it's written with a mindset that, you're not supposed to do it, but the spectrum on these practices are maybe not always so different. So here's, we're going to read the last words of Joshua, or what Joshua says to the people. Here we go.
I am now going the way of all the earth. Acknowledge with all your heart and soul that not one of the good things that the Lord your God promised you has failed to happen. They have all come true for you. Not a single one has failed. But just as every good thing that the Lord your God promised you has been fulfilled for you, so the Lord can bring upon you every evil thing until he has wiped you off this good land that the Lord your God has given you. If you break the covenant that the Lord your God enjoined upon you and go and serve other gods and bow down to them, then the Lord's anger will burn against you, and you shall quickly perish from the good land that he has given you.
Wow. Wonderful, hopeful reminder. God's done all these things for you, all these things. And he promised them and he delivered. On the other hand, there's a cautionary warning. You better not screw up, because just as all those good things God gave you, God can take them away. And again, what can you do to stop that? Fulfill the covenant, right? Don't break the covenant, and don't worship these other gods. And that is those are his last words. So now we get to the last book of the last chapter of the book of the story of Joshua. So essentially Joshua has now said goodbye, and very much like we have at the end of Deuteronomy, we have kind of like a epilogue, if you will, and the words of somebody stepping forward and kind of telling you what happens now. And so here we go.
Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. He summoned Israel's elders and commanders, magistrates and officers, and they presented themselves before God.
So
Then
wait,
Joshua
hold it a
said-
second. So,
Oh.
1 second. So this happens at Shechem, which is not Shiloh. Shechem is also in, as we talked about before, biblical city, ancient city. It's a city where Jacob lived near, and it's the city that Dinah was raped in, right? It's a big city, or was a big city, a Canaanite city, going back to Jacob's time. And it is it's in the modern city today of Nablus in the West Bank. It's completely Palestinian territory, with the exception that this is where the Samaritans live. This is where the last remnant of those northern tribes, the Samaritans, live in this town as well. They live in the city of Shechem. And this is where Joshua calls everybody together. And I jumped ahead a little bit, but it does have to do with Joseph. So this is not Shiloh. This is Shechem. Sounds the same, different place. It is a very important city in northern Israel. Here we go.
Then Joshua said to all the people, "Thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, in olden times your forefathers, Terah, father of Abraham and father of Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates and worshipped other gods. But I took your father Abraham from beyond the Euphrates and led him through the whole land of Canaan and multiplied his offspring. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. I gave Esau the hill country of Seir as his possession, while Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with the wonders that I wrought in their midst, after which I freed you. I freed your fathers from Egypt, and you came to the sea. But the Egyptians pursued your fathers to the Sea of Reeds with chariots and horsemen. They cried out to the Lord, and he put darkness between you and the Egyptians. Then he brought the sea upon them, and it covered them. Your own eyes saw what I did to the Egyptians. After you had lived a long time in the wilderness, I brought you to the land of the Amorites, who lived beyond the Jordan. They gave battle to you, but I delivered them into your hands. I annihilated them for you, and you took possession of their land. Thereupon, Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, made ready to attack Israel. He sent for Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you, but I refused to listen to Balaam. He had to bless you, and thus I saved you from him. Then you crossed the Jordan, and you came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho and the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites fought for you, but I delivered them into your hands. I sent a plague ahead of you, and it drove them out before you, just like the two Amorite kings, not by your sword or by your bow. I have given you a land for which you did not labor, and towns which you did not build, and you have settled in them. You are enjoying vineyards and olive groves, which you did not plant.
Okay, so what we have here in these first 13 verses of the last chapter is Jewish history up until this moment. It's literally a Jewish history. It's the history of the Israelites as the author of Joshua wants us to understand it. And look at what the history is. It's the history of Abraham, who we're actually reading about right now. We're reading about Abraham and his journey. Last week was Lech Lecha. We read about, we're reading about the birth of Isaac. And then it says Isaac's son, Esau. We don't want to forget about him. He's the Edomites. They get a possession, so that even gets in there. Must have been important. And then it talks about us going down. Doesn't mention Joseph in particular, but it says Jacob and his children went down. And then Moses and Aaron. Aaron, not just Moses, but Aaron too, is mentioned right here, right next to Moses. And you come out with the miracles, the plagues, all those kinds of things, right? And then you cross the Sea of Reeds, huge miracle in its own. And quite a bit, actually, if you think about it. There's these two verses here. Then it doesn't talk about being in the wilderness for 40 years, right? It doesn't talk about the punishment. It does talk about, and it does talk about, it actually reverses the order. We have the story of Balaam in the book of Numbers in about chapter 22. And then we have the war against Sihon and Og, the lands that we wound up with on the other side of the Jordan, the areas that now Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh live in. Those are big things. And now, as we've recounted in this book, we've now read about from here on, from 11 to 11 to 15. These are what's happened, or sorry, I went too far. 11 to 13. This is what's happened now. You have, just like we drove out Sihon and Og, not mentioned by name, but we know who the two Amorite kings are. You've conquered the land. I've given you the land. You didn't build any of these towns yourself. You didn't build any of the walls. You didn't make any of the cisterns and wells. You didn't plant the groves. You came in, you killed the people, you took the land, they left, they ran away, all these things, and you got all this stuff now. And you didn't work for it. That's Jewish history up until this point. God has given you the land that he promised his ancestors, which, by the way, again, what does it tell us about these people, right? Terach, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, by the way, both brothers, mentions both because Nahor's descendants become important, right? That is important. It says that they worshiped other gods. And then it says that when you were in Egypt, you were also not in your land. Now you're in your land. Now read this, read what the point is of what happens now. This is the way the book ends. Here we go. Rosemary. Oh, Rosemary lost the internet. So let me go back on until she comes back on. Now, therefore, revere the Lord and serve him with undivided loyalty. Put away the gods that your forefathers served beyond the Euphrates and in Egypt and serve the Lord. And so here, Joshua reminds the people that your ancestors were worshiping other gods when they were in Euphrates, in the Mesopotamian area before Abraham, and in Egypt. They were worshiping other gods. Or if you're loath to serve the Lord, choose this day which ones you're going to serve. The gods that your forefathers served beyond the Euphrates, and again, you could say Egypt too, those gods, or those of the Amorites in whose land you're now settled. But I and my household will serve the Lord. So you got the gods of Egypt, you got the gods of the Euphrates, you got the gods of Canaanites. You can worship any of those gods, but we are going to worship God, the God who gave us all these things. In reply, the people declared, far be it for us to forsake the Lord and serve other gods. For it was the Lord our God who brought us and our fathers from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage, and who wrought those wondrous signs before our very eyes and guarded us all along the way that we traveled and among all the peoples through whose midst we passed. And the Lord drove out before us all the peoples, the Amorites that inhabited the country. We too will serve the Lord, for he is our God. And this wonderful covenant of basically saying, which side do you want to be on? You want to be on the side of all those gods, or do you want to be on the side of God? And they say, God did all these things, and the people say, we will serve God. We read this section, my friends, at Passover. This is part of the Passover Seder, that we actually say these words. Interesting, right? We actually say these words. We repeat what our ancestors said during the time of Joshua. We say that as we come to the end of the story of what we read during the Magid, that part. Pay attention to it next time you get to it. Now that you were just read it in Joshua, you'll remember it. And Joshua said to the people, you will not be able to serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions and sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve alien gods, he will turn and deal harshly with you and make an end of you after having been gracious to you. And so Joshua says, don't be so quick. I'm telling you right now, this isn't going to be easy for you. And God doesn't forgive easily, right? This is bad. This is big stuff. God's done all these good things for you. You better pay attention. And the people have another chance to say, but the people replied to Joshua, no, we will serve the Lord. And so they say, we're going to do the right thing. Thereupon Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses against yourselves that you have by your own act chosen to serve the Lord. And they said, yes, we are. And so they knew what they're doing here. It's not just again for our ancestors, people who came in or who left Egypt. It's for us. And at this moment, we're not going to. And Joshua said, put away the alien gods that you have among you and direct your hearts to the Lord. And says, the people declared, we will serve none but the Lord our God, and we will obey none but him. And so Joshua says to them, put away the alien gods that you have among you. He's saying you already have these statues. You already have them. They're with you now. Get rid of them. So he's not saying it's just maybe you'll have them. You have them right now. On that day at Shechem, Joshua made a covenant for the people, and he made a fixed rule for them Joshua recorded all this in a book of divine instruction. He took a great stone and set it up at the foot of the oak in the sacred precinct of the Lord. All this at Shechem. And Joshua said to the people, see, this very stone shall be a witness against us, for it heard all the words that the Lord spoke to us. It shall be a witness against you, lest you break faith with your God. So this stone, this rock, this big rock, is going to be here forever. And it's going to be a reminder that you promised that you would not worship these other gods. And Joshua dismissed the people to their allotted portions. After these events, Joshua, the son of Nun, a servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110 years. So Moses lives to be 120. He's not quite Moses, but he lives a long life. He lives 110. And he goes and he's gone. He's the link to Moses, and he's now gone. And they buried him on his own property at Timnath Serah in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the Mount Gaash. And so he gets to be buried on his own property too. So just like Caleb got his property, he gets his property. Israel served the Lord during the lifetime of Joshua and the lifetime of the elders who lived on after Joshua and who experienced all the deeds that the Lord had wrought for Israel. And so again, Joshua was that person who was the link between Moses and the next generations. And so Joshua is a connection that they've now lost. He's gone. And what's interesting is that this book ends with this interesting story. The last few verses are not about Joshua. They're about the other people. In some cases, again, people who died a long time ago. The bones of Joseph. Now remember, Joshua is a descendant of Joseph. He's from the tribe of Ephraim. So his ancestor, Joseph, had not been buried. The Israelites had brought him up from Egypt and buried him at Shechem in the piece of ground which Jacob had bought for 100 kesitas from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, which had become a heritage of the Josephites. So that story of Shechem ends up coming back here as a story that Jacob bought property for his family there. We do not read that in the book of Genesis. If you are thinking maybe you forgot that, you did not forget it. We did not read about that in the story of Jacob and Joseph. It's not there. But there obviously was a story that it was there, and there's a tradition that it was there. Not that they needed it at that point, because Shechem is under their control. But the tomb of Joseph is a very important place now. It is a very deeply contested place because, again, it is completely surrounded by Palestinians, yet it is a place that Jews and Samaritans believe is the burial place of Joseph, and perhaps, my friends, the other tribe, the other sons of Jacob. There's also a tradition that they're buried in Hebron, that only Joseph is buried in Shechem. So there are places in the cave of Machpelah where Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Leah, and remember Rachel is buried in Bethlehem, but there are places at the cave where the other people like Naphtali and Gad and those other sons were buried, but it's also possible that they were buried in this place in Shechem. We don't know that Joseph is 100% buried there, but Jews believe that that's where he's buried. The Samaritans believe that he was buried there, that Joseph is buried there. And there is a tomb there, which was, as we've talked about before, was vandalized and burned by Palestinians right after the Second Intifada started, that place was destroyed. It is been rebuilt, and we don't know that, again, who's buried there for sure. The Samaritans definitely believe that Joseph was buried there, and they've lived there for a really long time. Christians believe that Joseph was buried there. And there's actually a tradition that early Byzantine Christians took Joseph's body and brought it to Hagia Sophia, to the church in Istanbul and Constantinople, and buried Joseph there. These are all possibilities, I guess, but supposedly the Samaritans hid Joseph's body there and didn't let it leave. I don't know. We just know that it's a very deeply contested site, even to this very day. I don't know that I've actually ever been there. I don't think, if I have been there, I was there 45 years ago. So I've not been there anytime recently. I've not taken groups there. It is not a place that I would feel safe bringing other people. But you can read more about it if you want, about the tomb of Joseph. The very, very last line, the book of Joshua says, Eleazar, the son of Aaron, also died, and they buried him on the hill of his son Pinchas, which had been assigned to him in the hill country of Ephraim. And so we read about Eleazar, who's Aaron's son, the last of that generation too, which technically is really kind of Joshua's generation. Pinchas, his son, is now the one in charge. Eleazar was still alive as Pinchas was kind of asserting his power and was leading the people, but Eleazar dies, and now there's a transition, not even from the next generation after Moses, but the next generation after Joshua, and then the next generation after that, which is the generation of Pinchas, if you will. So now we've read not just one generation after the generation of Joshua, but the next generation, the generation which, at least here, is to some extent, Pinchas is the person who is kind of left in charge. When you think about all the dust that settles now, it's now been, there's now another transition. So as we come to an end of a book, we say, Tav v'neshalem tehillah le'el borei olam, give thanks and praise to God, the creator of everything. And again, thank you everybody for being with us as we completed the first book of the rest of the Bible, as we would say, the sixth book of the Bible. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot to think about as we've transitioned away from Moses and into we're into this place. We do not know where this rock of swearing is. We know that we know the area that it's around, right? We know that it's in this area. We know that to answer Francine's question, that it's in this area in Shechem, but we don't know exactly where it is. All this area is very holy to the Samaritans, who are they believe that they're, and genetically it seems that they are descendants of these northern tribes, like the Ephraimites and the Manassites, that the Samaritans are indeed descendants of those people. They were not well regarded by Judeans. They were almost, again, seen as not really Jewish, but well, I guess they weren't Jewish. They were not Judean. They were northern, but they were Israelites, and they were, based on the DNA, they are Israelites. They are the same as, they have the same Kohanic genes frequency as Jews, and we have a common ancestor. So the DNA tells us that. There are not many Samaritans left, unfortunately, but they've lived nonstop in the land of Israel for thousands of years. We know that they were not well regarded even by Jesus, which is why we have a parable of the Good Samaritan, because nobody thought a Samaritan could be good. That's the whole purpose of the story, is to tell us, no, there can be good Samaritans. I mean, they may not normally be good, but there are good ones, and don't think that Samaritans can't be good. So it's a nice lesson not to lump all Samaritans together, but the parable only works if the people think the Samaritans are kind of messed up. So again, the parable, the stories only work if you understand the stereotypes, and that's unfortunately the stereotype that works. Again, it's a good message, right? It's a message of not discriminating, but it only works if people are already to some extent discriminating and showing some levels of prejudice. So this is Shechem. This is this will be the Samaritan territory, and we again don't do a lot of excavating there because it is completely surrounded by Palestinian. It's Nablus is a Palestinian city. It's not a refugee camp. It's not a, I mean, you should not get the impression that people are living in tents or that it's a city. I mean, Nablus is a city, and it's not a city you mess around it. It is deep in the country of whatever Palestinian entity will exist one day. Shechem is that place. You don't mess around, and you don't take groups. You can take groups into Jericho. You don't take Jewish groups into Nablus. I mean, that's not a joke. I mean, I'm not overstating that. The only Israelis who ever go into Nablus are soldiers that go in with convoys and a whole lot of protection. It's not close to being a place where people can excavate or create some kind of museum or something like that. So whatever history is there, we're years away from uncovering it. So to answer Francine's question, we don't know where the rock is. We don't know where these places are exactly. And we do know where the tomb of Joseph is, we think, but we can't prove it. And no one's going to excavate in the tomb. No one's going to uncover that'll disturb the bones of Joseph, which were disturbed enough. They finally came to rest. Well, thanks, everybody. We went a little long.
Rabbi, is there class tomorrow night?
There is class tomorrow
Okay.
night. You know why?
Why?
The game will probably be over by then.
No, it won't.
It will be. We'll be up by 5 or 6 runs by then.
I doubt that, but it's okay.
We're gonna win. Really.
Sure we
I
will.
told you not to doubt. You doubted last time. Told me you're not going to doubt anymore.
Well, with the pitching the way it is and the hitting the way it is, it's really going to be hard to win, but we'll see.
I'm telling you, those were must-win games for Atlanta. I don't know. Look, anything could happen, but they were must-win games for them. I want to say that. All right, folks, we will see you soon, and stay good, stay healthy, and go Dodgers. Bye, everybody.